Hi, everybody. How are you all doing? I'm so excited to have with me Sue Hitzmann today. I ran into Sue's story completely by accident, browsing through my Facebook page. And I was so moved and inspired by her story that I just had to contact her and ask her to share her story with us. And that's it. We're here today. So, hi, Sue. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
I'm really happy to have you here. Um, could you maybe say a few words about yourself?
A few words about myself. Well,
Yeah.
I'm a manual therapist. I'm a body worker. I was in New York for the last 30 years, and I just recently relocated to Florida. I live in Naples now, and I've spent the greater good of my life, both in the fitness and wellness industries, both in the fitness industry as a group exercise instructor and as a body worker. Dealing with persistent pain issues that come from everything from accidents, illness, to injuries, heartbreak, and the flu. I am the creator of the MELT method, which is a simple self-care technique that I developed out of my private practice to try to empower my clients to get out and stay out of my office through self-administered techniques that would simulate the light touch therapeutic intervention that I was applying to them in the office. And it worked. And so today I've got a few thousand instructors worldwide, and we share the self-care message. And through an app and a website, I've been able to help hundreds of thousands of people worldwide live more pain-free.
And that's amazing. And we're probably going to talk about that method a little bit more later, but can you share with everybody the story that you were telling on Facebook that drawn me to you?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, my husband died, and I got the rude awakening of really recognizing what addiction was and what it does to change a person, and the denial and the lying and the misunderstandings of what that is. And when my husband had passed away, it was the first time in my life where on my personal page on Facebook, I would put out some of the what I was calling my thought of the day, and they were excerpts from my journal. And it's been very profound to see how many people are struggling with similar stories and without an understanding of how to manage grief and loss, and also families and the family denial and things of that nature that can really leave you feeling completely out of sorts and shamed. So I think that it was a nice way for me to help myself stay grounded in the process of trying to heal and restore calm in my life after losing the one person that I love so much.
What was it that, and what it still is, that is helping you and supporting you through this complex process of dealing with loss?
I mean, I think that the thing I've really recognized is that most often with grief, the problem with grief is that you're living in the past. You in your mind, you keep reliving the past memory, and in some ways that trauma keeps you trapped in the present moment because your brain really doesn't know the difference between the past, the present, or the future. And if you keep eliciting the responses and the thoughts and the beliefs of the past, either you try to reconstruct your past to manage it in the present moment, which isn't really helping, or you just have to recognize that that is the past, and in the present moment, I'm safe. This is part of the learning, and to not look too far into the future to try to come up with solutions. So I think that that really has been the primary thing that's helped me over the last couple of years, is just coming back to the present moment, instilling a self-care practice of just acceptance. And I always say I accept my judgments and my fears, and I love myself anyway. And so I think that that's the biggest thing with grief, is recognizing that most of the emotional trauma that we're going through isn't happening right now at all. And so it's changing the story of what's going on in the present moment, and recognizing that you are safe and that things can change, that will allow you to shape a new future instead of feeling a victim to your life.
So the idea of changing a narrative, the way we tell our story, the way you are telling a story, and maybe the way that other people around you are telling your story, that's really something that makes a difference. So you were talking to me about how different people around you had a different story about what happened, and it sounded to me like it was a part of the struggle, but also something for you to understand how to grow from that. So I think this is something that a lot of people are asking themselves about.
Yeah, I think it happens with everyone. I mean, dealing with a family that said, like, they knew all about his past, actually perhaps more than I did, right? And even my husband having his own narrative. And when you're observing a behavior in your partner, and you are in the most loving way saying, hey, I'm observing this behavior and this doesn't look good, and I want to help you. What is this that you're doing? And then you're being gaslit, which is basically somebody saying to you, oh, well, it's you. I'm doing this because you're doing this, or your mother's doing that, or your brother had this, or because of this in my work. And it was everything outside of him was the problem. And when he died, there was a part of it that, you just like are bewildered. You can't even believe that it's happened. But I always think that changing the narrative is thinking that things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And in so many ways, in the traumatic events that happen to us, I always believe that the universe is trying to lead me towards joy, abundance, and prosperity. And as messed up as that can look on the surface, and all of the trauma and the bad circumstances that have happened, that's what they are. They're just circumstances. They're moments in time that are leading you toward something else. And so if you can come from that place when you have trauma, that something was done for you, not to you, and to understand how to learn from that. Like, there's some things, karmically, spiritually, I need to learn. And so this is what's been presented to me. I think it gives you more of an opportunity to show compassion for yourself. It gives you a moment to just love yourself and be more compassionate to your own thoughts and feelings. And I think that through the loss of Chris, and hearing his family saying, we need to change the narrative, that the narrative is that he had a neurological disorder and just fell asleep, when really that was not what was happening. This was someone who was 25 years into sobriety, not using alcohol, but taking this addictive nature and turning it to other substances, to other things. And that is denial. And when you are dealing with denial, you have a tendency, or at least I had a tendency, to try to want to explain what was really going on. And what a waste of time that is, because who cares what anybody thinks? And if I needed to be the reason, I needed to be the scapegoat, that I was a horrible wife and I did this to my husband, or I led him back into his ways, I think to myself, well, you can believe whatever you want, but when you're a light shining a light on a shadow, and you corner a shadow, sometimes a shadow will attack. And I think that in so many ways that was my experience of it. But what I've learned from it is that these things happen simply because we're trying to learn something about this. I needed to love with unconditional hope and support, and then lose it all and manage that, I think, so that I could gain spiritual enlightenment. And a thought I always have is that I'm not this body and I'm not this mind. I'm a spirit occupying this body and utilizing this mind to have a human experience and for spiritual enlightenment. And I think that that's what shapes us and develops our spirit is loss as well as abundance, right? That you need a little bit of both, because you can't really know joy unless you understand suffering. But we have a choice to suffer and stay there, or we have a choice to acknowledge the pain of something and the loss, and then rise up from it and reclaim our joy. And I think that that's a part of the human experience that needs community. Don't sit by yourself. And so, having a community like yours with people who are looking for support, I think that's a very important aspect to healing is community.
So I want to highlight two of the things that you said for our listeners, for the people that are watching. One is that also in the Balanza method, what we really want to do is to be accountable for our actions and for our reactions, because like you said, things are happening for us. And some people feel like things are just happening and we have no control over them, but we do have control on how we react and what we do. And that, for me, that what makes me feel stable, that what makes me feel powerful. I don't need to know that I can control everything. And I can't control, like you can't control your husband's family's narrative and story, but you can control how you react to it. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I would like for you to maybe say a few more words about is, I was super impressed by the fact that you said, I don't mind if they need me to be their scapegoat, then that's what I'm going to be, because a lot of people are holding on to the anger. Holding on to the anger helps me hold on to the person I lost. Mm-hmm. So what I would really like for you to, if you can even explain that, what gave you the strength to do that, to be able to say, okay, if that's what you need, that's what you need, but I'm going to let it go?
I think one of the biggest things that I just always said, I know the truth. I knew the truth. And the truth was my husband loved me and I loved him unconditionally. I loved him so much. I would have done anything to try to help him. And in fact, that was what I was doing. My reaction to him was to, shine a light and say no. And I kind of fought with it. And he would fight back. And then when he finally said, oh, well, the reason I'm doing this is because of you, I was like, oh, well, here, I'll just step aside and then I won't react. And the moment I stopped reacting, he died. So that was really a powerful recognition, where when you don't think you can control your destiny, that in my stepping down, the worst happened, right? I thought that he was going to come around and say, don't do this, right? So you have this narrative in your mind, and we're the only creatures on the entire planet that can actually create an altered reality of the future that may or may not ever happen, right? So in the sense, I'm thinking, I'm just going to go ahead and step aside, and this is going to get him to say, please don't do this. I love you. I need to go to rehab. I need to do these things. And that is not what happened. He died of a drug overdose. And this is a family that will utterly deny that, no matter what a coronary's report says. And I think that the idea to me was that they're hurting too. His family is hurting. His family lost another family member in their lifetime. They've lost a mom, a dad, a son, and another brother. And they're hurting. And so their way to cope with maintaining the family legacy were the words, we had to maintain the family legacy, that the way that they were doing that was to lie about my husband. And that made me really angry, because I'm like, you're dismissing this beautiful creature's, this beautiful man's life to satisfy your story and your narrative. But what it is that they were just trying to cope and move forward also. And if they need to do that through fabrication or through stories, just like I do, this is my story. This is what I perceived. This is what I experienced. And so you can't take that away from someone. You can just say, I understand you, and I can hold compassion for your way of being, which is why he was an addict anyways, because he grew up in a family that denied who he was or shamed who he was. And it is what perpetuates the dysfunction. It allows it to fester. So I just can only hold compassion in acknowledging that I can see why my husband was how he was and why they reacted the way that they reacted, because they just don't know any other way, because this is a lifetime, generations of lifetimes, right? It's a family karma that goes on forever. So I think that for me was what allowed me to say, if that's your story and that's what's going to get you guys to move forward, and then I'm okay with that. But I know the truth. And the truth is my husband loved me, and he was just diminishing his earthly life that God gave him. And I fought to get him to not do that. And it destroyed the love that was physically out there, but it doesn't destroy the love in me for him or for myself. It actually, I think it makes it stronger. And I would also say to those people who lose someone that, when you die, I really believe, and this is just my belief, but energy and matter is something to describe that space is 99.999% of what's around us is space, but mass and what we see and perceive is there. But when you leave the body, all you are is just changing an energy form from a physical body to a spiritual or ethereal body. You don't just disappear and your spirit is over. Your spirit continues on well beyond the expansiveness of this small form of your body. And now you get to be back with the spirit of the universe, of what the energy is around us. So I don't think that he's gone. I think that he's still in me, part of me, around me, much like all of the people that other people have lost, is that we keep them and their spirit awake by remembering them, and not being angry, because anger doesn't help the spirit that's gone. And, I always say nobody dies at the wrong time either. It might be inconvenient for those of us that are living, but when your time is your time, no matter how crazy that looks on the surface, I think that that's a piece of life that we need to come to terms with, that just, life beyond what we know and love beyond what is physical, I think is something that people need to learn to explore more, because it is a thing that's not, it's not fabricated. Matter is matter and energy is energy, and energy is never created or destroyed. It just changes. And so we change too.
And that also leads me to something else that you wrote that I just read about embracing. Embrace whatever is happening around us or for us. And this is actually something that I'm talking about a lot. This is one of the Balance Method's fundamentals, is embrace the change. And the change is the movement, is everything that happens around us. So what I keep trying to tell people, what I love the way you wrote, and I'm probably going to share it, it doesn't mean that I have to love everything that happens to me, but I just acknowledge it and I accept it. And then I can decide how I want to react to it and what I want to do with it. So,
perfect.
Yeah, so yeah, that led me to that. And the last thing that I would really like to hear more from you is, you started talking about the community as a source of support. If you could say a few more words, this is something that in each interview I really try to emphasize, because a lot of the people in my community, in the Families Hangout, are very scared to reach for support, to ask for support. Some people feel like they don't have anybody to reach out to. So, and you're such a strong woman, very successful. So if you can tell us a little bit about that experience of reaching for help and support.
Yeah, community is really important, and getting the right community and the right help is even more paramount. Like when Chris had first died, somebody said, "Oh, you should look on Facebook. There are grief support groups. I think this might really help you." And I went to this grief support group, and I'm looking at the posts, and I didn't find it extremely helpful because it was a lot of people commiserating on the negative and, saying, I can't continue on, and people saying, oh, Godspeed, and we love you, and don't worry. And that to me is actually belittling what they're actually saying. What they're really saying is, I don't know what to do, and I'm not sure where to go. And I would say, like, I would write into those chats, can it just be okay that you just don't know? Can it be okay for a minute that you're not really sure what to do next, but that if you're here, and if you can focus on what can I do right now to help me to expand where I am so that I can continue. That was like a big thing for me, is making sure that, you're coming back to the present moment, and that you're really listening. You have people who are really listening to what you're saying, because what can often happen when you are in a state of grief is that, at first people really want to love you and what can I do to help you? But then after a while, they're like, are you done grieving? Can we go back to like you wanting to like go for bike rides or things? It just, you really need to sort of expand the concept. And unfortunately, most of the time we get into the minutia, and then again, you get into communities that actually keep you there, keep you commiserating, keep you in the suffering. So finding communities that are actually wanting to be proactive, to get you back to the present moment, to say, what's happening right now? What can we do today to ensure a better tomorrow? And yes, I know it hurts. Yes, I know loss is terrible. Yes, I know it feels terrible. But in the end, what can we do right now to expand and to go back to love? And so finding the right community is also very important. Finding the right friends. Some friends are not very good when it comes to grieving, right? I mean, I had friends who were so angry at Chris's fair. They're terrible. They're the son. I said, no, they're actually not terrible. They're wonderful people. They're very good people. They're just suffering, and they don't know how else to suffer but to hurt other people, because hurt people hurt people. So, show compassion for them. They're not bad people. So I think that's, again, it's changing the narrative and being around people who can change the narrative with you. That's really important. And again, to not go at it alone, because the thoughts in your mind and the voices in your head can drive you crazy. So I always encourage you not to necessarily listen to the voices in your mind, but listen to people who can listen to you, can listen to how you're going through things. And then I always think that the best thing to do is to then ask questions rather than give people answers or say, don't feel bad or don't worry, because that's belittling the feelings that you're having. And I say, hold on to the feelings that you have. Know that those feelings are real, but you're bigger than your thoughts, your emotions, and your feelings. So let's just rise up from that, and let's try to find a way for us to cope and stay together and rise up from it.
Thank you, Sue. This is what is super inspirational for me anyway, and it kind of like puts together a really great way maybe to deal not just with loss, but with anything that we going through life that is hard, that is not easy. Life doesn't have to be easy. It's all opportunities, like you said. Whatever happens, we grow from it, we learn from it, and we become better for ourselves.
Yes, joy and happiness comes from inside.
Yes.
Right? It all comes from in here. You're not going to be happy because of someone, because of something. Joy and abundance comes from inside. So if you can be grateful and show gratitude for the things that you have, I think life is less it's less hard, it's less stressful. You can find your joy every day. I think that's important to find that blessing, and even in the suffering, that you can come out of suffering. You just need a little support sometimes.
Yeah. What is your life motto?
Stay present, be present, love and be present, because the opposite of love is fear. So don't walk around being fearful of your life or fearful of the future. And I think that you can just love and you'll be happier.
Thank you. And I really, truly encourage everybody to check out Sue's page because she keeps posting very inspirational posts. And go check out her website about the melt method, which is, it's proving itself, obviously. And that's it. I really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.